"Would you like some liquid sugar, my lord?" she asked, smiling seductively at Vladimir, who had had enough. In fact, her sweaty body was beginning to irk him. "Another time, sugar. Go wash yourself for now," he told her, not wanting to offend her. She was the only vampire in the whole realm who had mastered the art of giving him pleasure exactly the way he wanted, but her blood disgusted him now. He couldn't suck past a drop of blood the last time he bit her. A knock was heard on the door. "Come on in," he called, covering himself with his sheet. His second-in-command, Jan, came in. Seemed like he just got a new tattoo with the subtle grin on his face. "What's up, Jan?" "The Wizard King's advisor, Sorcerer Neil, is here to see you," Jan informed him courteously. "Tell him I'll join him shortly," he replied and watched Jan leave. Vladimir knew that old crook was coming, but didn't know he would be coming so late at night. What the hell was so important anyway? He got down from bed, washed his body from the stench of his favorite whore, got ready, and went down to meet the old wizard. "How outdated of you to come all the way here, wizard," Vladimir greeted the old wizard as he joined him in his office. The wizard stood and bowed before sitting back down on the long couch in Vladimir's spacious office. "You came in the night. I thought you already knew I'm a daylighter, Neil. I can't get fried by the sun." He laughed and sat down opposite Neil. "How else would I have been able to see you, Great One?" Neil asked cautiously. "Whatever happened to calls, FaceTime, videos, and the likes? Or has modern technology not gotten to the wizard realm?" "It has, Your Grace, but the internet is a very scary place, don't you think? Nothing ever gets wiped off. Besides, the information I'm about to give is an extremely sensitive one." Vladimir chuckled and got up to get a bottle of champagne and 2 glasses. He corked them open and poured drinks into them, handing one to the wizard and taking a sip from his glass. "I wonder what your king would be doing without his brain around him." He dropped his glass and walked to the window. "I mean, you're his brains on legs, so for him to allow you come all this way means whatever you want to tell me is important." "It is indeed, my king," Neil responded. He still haven't touched his drink. "I believe you'll be interested." "I don't know what it has to do with me, but let's hear it." Neil then proceeded in telling the king about the hybrid female child born from his father's betrothed who was mated to their enemy, a werewolf. He went ahead to tell him about the child's real identity and where she was at the moment. "I know your realm have been looking for her, but we need her to be on our side to make our realm stronger." Vladimir fell silent after hearing what the wizard had to say. He was beyond shocked that the child has been located, and she was not anywhere else in the world but the werewolf realm. He wanted her for himself, and it was time to take back something from those savages. He would have to betray the wizards, but it will be worth it. His realm was already a force to reckon with. Imagine adding the powers of the Golden Wolf by his side. No one else will stand a chance against them anymore. For now, all he had to do was offer some help to lure her here first. "What about her father, the exiled werewolf?" he asked the sorceress who has been waiting for his response. "He is somewhere in the human realm, I think," Neil replied, relieved that the vampire king was willing to help them. "I will think of a plan and get back to you." He nodded at Neil. "I have to call it a day, wizard," he concluded and went back to his room, leaving the wizard to find his way back himself. "I would send my men to search for him and bring him here. That won't be that hard, and that would be the easiest way to make her come here on her own accord." Vladimir thought to himself with a wicked grin on his face. Alpha Zeke. My mate had suddenly gone missing. My beta and gamma believed she must have escaped, but that didn't feel right because I would have been able to track her whereabouts through her smell. Also, according to her personal maid, who brought the issue to my attention, Emma wanted to run away at first but changed her mind after her father left. Someone was intentionally blocking any possible access to her, and before today ends, I promise to know who that was. Too much was happening already. The mangled body of the sorceress was found near the river, and now Emma was missing. My head felt swollen with fear. What if... No, it can't happen. It won't. My heartbeat accelerated. I wanted to smash things so bad, especially the head of whoever it was who had the nerve to lay hands on my mate. Whoever kidnapped Emma is most probably responsible for the sorceress's death, I heard Curtis say, but I wasn't listening. I was losing my mind, and so was Black. He was growling, rumbling, and fighting so much for control. My mate was in trouble. I felt it deep in my bones, but I couldn't even reach her through even mind link. Damn! I growled uncontrollably, smashing my hand through the glass table in front of me. Mint and Curtis took few steps back. They knew how horrible I was feeling at the moment and could do so little to stop it. If anything happens to Emma, I would never be able to forgive myself until I die. My office phone rang out suddenly. Curtis rushed to pick it up and then turned to me with an anxious expression on his face. "It's for you, Alpha." I drew in a long breath and took the phone from him. Alpha Zyke, an unfamiliar deep baritone voice, spoke up. I realized whoever it was used a voice changer. I already knew it was the person who kidnapped my mate. "What do you want?" I asked in an icy voice. "I'll go straight to the point," the voice said with a trace of humor. "This realm does not need a half-blood as their Luna, so I'm doing this for their sake since their Alpha King has lost his mind." "What do you want? Damn it!" I clenched and unclenched my fist, wishing it could land on the person's face at the other end of the receiver. "The 3 months for the chosen mate probation is almost over?" He paused and cleared his throat annoyingly. "You have 3 days to make Heather Strove your chosen Luna Queen and announce it to the whole realm, or else you will never be seeing your mate again." "If you want to make a request like this," I retorted coolly, "you shouldn't do it behind a voice changer like a coward. And I'm not negotiating the life of my mate with you." "Your time starts now, Alpha." The voice laughed out loud. "I'll advise you start preparing for the ceremony as there isn't much time on your hands. Your mate will be returned to you after the ceremony. If you touch a single hair on her head, I'll make sure you regret every single breath you take for the remaining days of your useless existence in this world. Make sure to hide well, because I will find you and make you pay." I slammed the receiver back and let out a loud piercing growl. Whoever that imp was can never make me cower. Alphas don't cower in the face of threats. "First," I turned to my 2 trusted subordinates, "let us investigate the murder of the sorceress. I'm sure it'll lead us to Emma's captors." They both nodded and stood at attention. For now, no one should know about this asides us. I'll be detaching some heads real soon. The realm members don't have to know. "Emma." Tap, tap, tap. I was woken up by a continuous sound of a drop of water on the ground, echoing throughout the hall. My head was hurting so bad, everywhere was dark, so I had to blink hard before I was able to see what was around me. There was nothing. I was in a place that looked like an empty storehouse. I was tied with the blue rope they used on me the first time I stumbled into the realm, but I wasn't feeling as weak as I was the other time. I dropped my head to check if the necklace my father gave me was still there, but it wasn't. Whoever kept me must have known what it was to take it away from me, or maybe not. I wasn't alarmed like the last time something of such happened to me, and I couldn't help but wonder if my mate was responsible for this one. If not him, who else would want to harm me? Would he really want to harm me? Wait! Heather tricked me? That bloody wench! I knew something felt odd about her, and my mate could have never asked her to send me such message. I wonder if he would have known about my disappearance by now. The worst was I couldn't even call for help. "Ashley?" I called my wolf, hoping she would be of some help. "Ashley, are you there?" But I couldn't feel or see her in my head. What the hell is happening? I knew Ashley. No matter how indifferent she was sometimes, she would never abandon me totally when we were in trouble this way. She wouldn't go totally silent on me. Or did the people who abducted me do something to her? "Don't panic, Emma. Don't panic," I yelled at myself, but that couldn't stop the hot tears from streaming down my cheeks. I could hear footsteps form behind me, but the tightness of the blue rope wouldn't allow me turn, and soon I saw 2 huge men in front of me. They were wearing black leather jacket with pants, but didn't bother covering their faces, which I couldn't really see properly due to their abnormal heights. "How the hell are you still conscious?" one of them mumbled, peering down to look at my face, but his face wasn't familiar. "Seriously, is that important right now, dumbhead?" the other asked, sounding exasperated. Anyway, We are going to be getting rid of you before the Luna Queen coronation, as the Alpha instructed." He continued, sounding like it meant nothing to him. A scalding pain shot through me at those words. My heart was ripping apart. My mate was going to take that conniving beach, Heather, as his Luna Queen? Was that why he wanted to get rid of me? I felt as though my heart was breaking into tiny pieces and sinking into the depths of hell. Why couldn't he just allow me leave with my father then if he didn't want me? Was this all I could get from loving him? I raised my teary eyes to look at them, hoping they would be merciful enough to let me go. I would never step my foot back on the soil of the werewolf realm ever again. I begged in my heart, wishing for probably the millionth time that I could talk. Maybe I would have been able to negotiate with them. "Don't worry, pretty one, we won't be killing you here," he stated, coming closer to where I was sitting. I didn't see his fist coming, and before I knew it, he slammed my cheeks with his iron fist, knocking consciousness out of me. Third-person point of view. "Well done, daughter." Alpha Argo said to Heather, who was sitting across him on their dining table in the pack house of Green Forest Pack. "I'll take it up from here. Do you really think he would give in?" Heather asked, worried lines creasing her forehead. "Aren't stuffs like this going to backfire later? I mean, the sorceress is dead." Heather was visibly fidgeting on her seat, but calmed a bit as soon as her father walked to where she sat and placed a hand on her shoulders. "You only become a criminal when you are caught, child." His voice was soothing Heather's hysteria more now. "You deserve the position of the Luna. You were trained for it all your life, and I'll do everything within my powers to make sure you get it." He patted her hair and went back to his seat. "I just don't want out plans to fail after putting everything on the line like this." Heather muttered in a calmer tone. "Don't worry, daughter, you'll get the Alpha for yourself." He just couldn't tell his daughter what his real plans was. She was too much in love with the king to agree to it. But it was really simple, though. He kills the Alpha King, make his child the Luna Queen before that, and control the realm through her. Alpha Zyke, "Curtis, please get my sister here right now." I ordered Kurt while we watched the activities of the security cameras of the whole castle. She told me she was going for a hiatus as usual, but this time was different. I couldn't risk losing anyone anymore. As Kurt stood up to go, my office door burst open and my sister walked into the office holding a large hardcover book. "I was going to send for you, Tricia," I said, surprised and relieved. "Well, I'm here now," she said, walking to where we were all seated. "What is happening, brother? You found your mate and didn't even bother to tell me. A golden wolf, for that matter. Were you going to tell me about her after the Luna Queen coronation?" "Hey, hold your horses, sis." I raised my hands. "She isn't here right now, and that's what we are trying to figure out. What do you mean by golden wolf? Because she had gold-colored furs. If your beta and gamma wasn't here right now, I would have called you an idiot." She spat angrily. "Didn't the sorceress tell you yet? I saw everything at the ball, and I had to make some research. You were hiding her all these while because you thought she was what? An abomination? A half-blood? Joke's on you, brother." Kurt, Mint, and I were all staring at her like she has lost her mind or the too much hiatus she was going on was messing with her mind. Or maybe because she was reading too much. Kurt got up and dragged her to the side, asking her what the problem was in low whispers. "Heather, the sorceress is dead." I breathed, dropping my face on my palms. Her body was found at the bush path near the beach, and while we were trying to investigate on her death, my mate was kidnapped. So I don't get what you are saying. "Do you think there are some people trying to stop her from telling you?" she asked, leaving Curtis to come face me. "Tell me what, Tricia?" I was beginning to get frustrated. "Tell you about the prophecy, brother. Mate isn't just a gold fur-colored wolf. She is the golden wolf promised by the goddess, but you were too blind to see the gift right in front of you because you were too keen on keeping the family's dumb legacy. How many people would want her right now? How many realms would kill to get her on their side? Why? I'm not even surprised she was kidnapped." And after ranting, Tricia went ahead and showed us proofs of her words in the Book of Prophecies. The book she came with. It was true. I knew about the prophecy, every werewolf does, but it just didn't occur to me that something that grand would happen now, and before my very eyes for that matter. How could I believe I would be mated to the golden wolf promised by the moon goddess herself? My mind felt numb, and I couldn't think of anything for a moment. All the images I could remember were the times I treated my mate bad, the countless times I pushed her away from me, the time I treated her like she was absolutely nothing, the times I hurt her both physically and emotionally. I had rejected her the instant I met her, without even giving myself a chance to know how much of a sweet and kind soul she was. I would never forgive myself if I lose her. I was given a rare gem, but tossed it into the garbage. I stood up abruptly, startling everyone. They looked up at me with expectant faces. "I'm going to get my mate," I said with a determined stance. "How?" they all chorused. "I may not be able to find her as my mate, but I can find her as an alpha wolf." I said as a great idea dropped into my mind, Alpha Zyke. "Wait," Trisha held me back. Her eyes was full of concerns. "You can't just go look for her without a plan. What if you get hurt?" I didn't say I was, Trish. I forced a small smile to reassure her. "I'll be fine, trust me." I nodded at Curtis to come take her back to her seat. Truth be told, I wouldn't mind getting hurt, as long as I got my mate back to safety. She has been hurt enough. She had been through enough. It was time I took the fight from her, and I don't care if she can take care of herself. It has always been my duty to protect her, even though I didn't know this any sooner. I went into my room and started to look for one of my clothes I wore on Emma, and thankfully, the laundry team hadn't laid their hands on it. I cursed myself for not thinking about this earlier. I could trace her with her smell even without our bond. That was one of the perks of being an alpha wolf. Other wolves could do it, but it wouldn't be as accurate as mine. I left the castle, walking to the bush path close to beach, when I was stopped by Emma's personal maid. She was all teary eyes, asking me if I have heard from Emma. I told her to go get some rest, and that Emma would join her shortly, which she took reluctantly. I left her and moved deeper into the bush path. There was no time to waste. I shifted into my wolf form, as Black was already waiting for the opportunity to go rescue our mate. It was getting dark. Still, I had to try and stay hidden as much as possible, so no one would suspect what was going on. Black sniffed the clothes, drawing a lung full of our mate's soothing smell. It was something that was stuck in our memory, but we needed the clothes to heighten it and help us reach her faster. Black broke into a run after smelling the clothes. We still couldn't feel her, but we could follow her scent. Black tore deeper and deeper as her whiff directed, and soon I noticed we were getting closer to the Green Forest pack. How did Emma get here? I wondered, pushing Black to run faster. Then something clicked in my head. The Green Forest pack was headed by Alpha Argo, father of Heather. He was the one who suggested that I take his daughter as my Luna Queen. The anonymous caller trying to strike a bargain specifically wanted me to make Heather the Luna. It could only mean one thing. Alpha Argo was desperate enough to go through any length to make sure his family becomes royalty. Like Trisha said, I was indeed too blind to see what was going on. I knew that Alpha was slimy and conniving, but I never knew he could get to this point. Let me get my mate out from there first. I would make him pay with everything I've got. Tall trees appeared in front, swaying to the direction the strong wind blew them. I was indeed in the Green Forest pack. It rained here more than any other packs in the realm. I kept going deeper and deeper into the pack, making sure I avoided the residential areas so as not to draw attention to myself. "Hold on, Emma. I'm almost there," I whispered in my head, praying fervently that she hangs in there. Her smell was stronger now, and it simply meant she was still alive. I was in the middle of a really thick forest now, dead leaves and shrubs and looming trees everywhere. I stopped running and shape-shifted back into my human form, started taking careful steps to be as quiet as possible. A drop of rain landed on the tip of my nose. Then more drops, and before I knew it, the little drops turned into a thunderstorm. I walked with ease now, keeping my wet eyes open and my ears peeled. Fortunately, my heightened sense of hearing caught a sound of people laughing from about 100 meters ahead. I followed the sound, which was leading to where my mate's smell was, only to find myself standing before an extremely tall tower in the middle of the forest. The tower was so tall, its roof was literally in the sky. It should be 20 stories high. How did Argo build something like this in his pack and no one knew? Well, I guess he had been scheming a lot for these past years. 2 hefty men in black leather jackets stood sentry with sheathed swords by their side, in front of a tiny door which looked like the only entrance into the tower. I marched brazenly towards them, in a way that they noticed and were about to draw out their swords. But before they succeeded in unsheathing their swords, I ran to them in a speed of light, grabbed their throats, and snapped their necks before they could make further sounds. The tiny door was made of wood, so I nudged it open carefully, ambling tentatively into a pitch-dark room. I looked around and was lucky to see a flight of stairs at my far right. The stairs were round and looked like I was going in circles instead of going up, but soon I arrived in front of an iron gate that looked like it was locked from the inside. A strong smell of red velvet and lemon wafted into my nostrils. Mine! Black growled in my mind, pacing around. I could feel her presence strongly now. I have come this far. Not even an iron gate would stop me, I thought as I hurled my weight into the gate. It didn't budge the first time, but I continued hitting and hitting until the door clanged open, falling flat on the ground. Before I could catch my breath, I saw Emma tied to a chair with that blue rope in the middle of a large room. The ceiling was evidence that this was the highest point of the tower. I gazed at my mate, and the sight of her caused my heart to rip apart. Her head was hanging low, and her face looked red and swollen. They were torturing her. They hurt her. These assholes had the temerity to lay hands on my mate. The thought aggravated me as I clenched and unclenched my fist, marching towards her. However, I decreased my pace when I sensed a presence behind me, and before the person could lunge at me, I twirled quickly and slammed my fist into his face. The unidentified man went sprawling on the ground. A blue stone fell from his pocket and rolled to where I stood. I picked it up and saw that it was the necklace Emma was wearing the other time. I rushed to where she was and cut the blue rope loose with my fangs. She dropped into her arms with her eyes closed. One of her eyes was swollen and red. A drop of tear dropped down my eyes at the sight. Look at what I've done. I wonder if she would ever forgive me. Emma, I called her name, relieved that she was still breathing. Emma, wake up. My voice sounded husky as though I was crying. I squatted on the ground, holding her tight against my chest, feeling my heart break and shatter at the thought of how much pain she must have been through. I wore her the diamond necklace, harboring a faint hope that it could bring back her consciousness. Drop her down now if you want to leave this place alive. A masculine voice spoke from behind me. I looked up to see about 10 men standing with bows and arrows pointed directly at my mate in my arms, ready to shoot. You don't get to give me orders, you low lives, I growled at them, watching all of their movements with hawk eyes. Now. One of the men signaled, and the rest fired. I twirled instantly, covering my mate with my whole body as I felt the piercing sting of arrows slicing into my skin. A blood-curdling growl erupted from my depth, sniping life out of me slowly. Blood was dripping out from different part of my body, including my mouth. Emma's eyes fluttered open, and as our eyes met, she gasped, her pretty face contorting in horror. No, she let out a shrill cry, scrambling out from my grasp. She stood up with so much vigor like she wasn't unconscious a few minutes ago. And she could speak. She was by my side, but I could hear sounds of grunts from those men and shattering woods on the floor. I was getting weaker and weaker, and it was getting harder to breathe, but I garnered enough strength to look up at her as she bundled me into her tiny arms, tears streaming down her eyes. Hey, you'll be fine, okay? Her voice was shaky and sweet. The first time I was hearing my mate talk, she crushed me to her bosom, her tears wetting my face. I smiled weakly at her, wishing she would continue speaking. I'm sorry, Emma, really. I forced myself to say and started coughing out blood afterwards. Pain seared through me as I coughed some more. Shush! Don't talk again, please, she sobbed quietly, her blue pupils changing to red, and then her face became more and more blurry till my mind shut down. Emma! A loud growl pierced into my subconsciousness, jerking my eyes open. The first thing I saw was my mate's face twisted in pain, blood spurting out from his mouth. Somehow his face turned into that of my mother with her red hair and expressionless face. And my father wasn't there to hold back the scream erupting from my inside. No, my voice rang out for the first time in 13 years. I scrambled up from the ground, still unaware of what just happened to me. About 10 men who all looked like the man in the mask who killed my mother were a few feet away, holding bows and arrows ready to shoot again. I instinctively stretched out my hands towards them, feeling the necklace glow brightly from my chest. I snatched their weapons from them without going close to them and snapped their necks without having to touch them. After that, I crumbled down on the cold ground by my mate. His back was full of spears that pierced out of his chest and stomach. A cold feeling enveloped me as I watched life slip out of him. Blood was everywhere, like that night. The thought brought flashbacks that tore at my heart, and suddenly I was holding my mother against my chest. Wrenching sobs escaped me. The same helplessness back then seemed to cripple me now. I couldn't move. I couldn't do anything anymore, but hold her tight against my body. Everywhere was filled with blood now, my mate's blood. "Hey, you'll be fine, okay?" I tried to keep my voice steady, but it was trembling just as my whole body was. I looked at his face, and he was my mate again. He was smiling up at me, moving his lips as though he was trying to speak. I'm sorry, Emma. Really, he forced himself to say, smiling weakly at me, causing him to cough out thick red blood. Another bout of flashbacks. My father drops me as soon as the men left and hurries to pick my mum up from the ground, with blood gushing out from her chest. I could remember her frozen eyes, her knees on the ground, her hand holding the long spear pierced into her heart. My knees buckled as my weight couldn't carry my legs anymore. Her smiling and moving face appeared in my head then, a face I would never see again for the rest of my life, causing me to scream into the night. I rocked my mate back and forth while shivering uncontrollably, begging him not to say anything again. I couldn't see clearly anymore. My eyes was full of tears even as a few drops gathered under my cheeks. I couldn't get myself up. My mind was dark, filled with terrifying stuffs that made me feel like I was that little helpless 5-year-old child again. A scalding wrench burned at my heart, but it felt distant, like all my senses had suddenly gone numb. I wanted to scream for help, but I didn't know how to say the words, and the only things my 5-year-old mind could process was, my mate saved me. He might lose his own life because of me. He saved me, like my mother. I realized she could have saved herself with the diamond necklace, but she used it to protect me instead. I didn't see the 2 large hands that grabbed my back coming, trying to take my mate from me. "No, leave him alone," I shrieked, tightening my hold around his body. "It's us, Emma. You can let him go now. It's fine. Everything would be fine." A soothing, familiar voice that I couldn't place spoke to me, and when I lifted my head up, it was the guy with green hair. I knew him but couldn't place his face yet. My mind was still in chaos, but I felt a protecting aura coming from the other male holding me from behind. As he came into view, I saw the familiarity in his face and the shades of gray in his dark hair, but couldn't remember him yet. But I felt safe around the both of them, safe enough to loosen my hold on my mate before passing out on the shoulders of the one holding me. Third-person point of view. Alpha Zyke had no idea that after he left the office that his Gamma and Beta had followed suit. Curtis and Mint followed the Alpha's smell just as he followed his mates. Trisha begged to follow, but the both promised her they would come back with the Alpha unhurt. She agreed on the terms that if she doesn't see them after 6 hours, she would be coming after them with the whole army of the Royal Guards. And you have to go with at least 10 armed guards. She had instructed them, like the badass princess she was. They accented, carrying as much guards as Mint's Highlander could contain, which was not up to 10. Tracing the Alpha wasn't hard and didn't even really require his smell, as their night vision made it possible for them to see Black's footprint. But it was impossible as soon as they drove into Green Forest Pack because of the rain, so they had to rely on his smell to lead them. Mint drove at an insane speed despite the rain, which helped them arrive sooner than expected. Curtis wouldn't have allowed Mint drive that way on a normal day, but today was different. He would do the same if he was holding that steering. Without further ado, they rushed into the tower, which was already open by the time they got there. 2 men were lying unconscious on the ground, so Curtis ordered 2 of the guards to tie them up and wait at the door while the rest went inside. 4 men in black leather jacket rushed out of nowhere, swinging swords, but the royal guards were faster and more trained, taking the men down in a matter of seconds. 2 guards should guard this floor, and the rest should follow us, Mint ordered as he and Curtis dashed up the circling stairs till they got to the highest room in the tower. They both froze as they saw their alpha lying in his own pool of blood, with his head on his mate's chest, spears in his back. She wrapped her hand around him, rocking back and forth, sobbing and muttering "Mother" over and over again. Some men were lying unconscious in the ground close to broken bows and arrows. Mint and Curtis had no idea what went on in this room, but saving their alpha was priority. They both knew Emma was in some kind of daze, owing to her blank stare, cloudy eyes, and quivering lips, so they had to detangle her hand carefully from the alpha. But as soon as Mint touched her, she thrashed around with her back, tightening her hold on the alpha's shoulders, screaming for them to leave him alone. Mint nodded at Curtis, who spoke calmly to her, asking her to let him go in the most soothing voice Curtis could muster. A look of recognition crossed her eyes as she raised her head up to see their faces. Her face was wet with tears, and her whole body was visibly trembling. She finally loosened her clutch on the alpha was barely alive now, and slumped on Mint's shoulders after that. Kurt carried her from Mint to give him space to check on the alpha. Mint, the medical doctor among them, checked Zyke's pulse and realized he was in a very critical condition, and he held on this much because he was an alpha. With the help of the other guards, they rushed the alpha and his mate down to the car, then gave instructions to the other guards to bring those men down to the castle. The spears in the Zyke's back had to be removed with utmost care, and with life-saving medical equipment nearby, but they had none with them, so they had to drive like crazy to Mint's clinic without drawing attention from the member of the Green Forest pack. It would surely be a long night. A week later. Emma. It was a week of agonizing traumatic experience. I was stuck on my bed all through, fighting through series of nightmares and sudden daydreams that brought the images I was trying so hard to shove into the deepest depth of my mind. Carla was with me all through, taking care of me, reading me calming bedtime stories with happy endings, and sometimes I could hear her sobbing quietly beside my bed at night. She was so happy that I was alive and could finally talk. And when I was healthier, she made me say all sort of things so she could keep listening to me talk. "It's a miracle, Emma," she had said. I got better as days went by, but I wasn't allowed to go see my mate. They wouldn't let me, no matter how much I begged. They only told me he was responding to treatment and won't let me stay by his side. I tried to go to his room but found 2 tall men standing guards in front of my room. I planned to leave this realm after coming out from the traumatic experience with the help of Carla, after seeing my mate hale and hearty, of course. I couldn't stay here any longer, as it seems like my presence was putting our lives under threat. I can't imagine anyone I love dying in my stead anymore. My mate can take Heather as his chosen mate, since that was what his realm wanted. I could never be his Luna Queen here. The people that did all that to us were still living freely, as Zeke's subordinates couldn't let anyone know that the Alpha was bedridden or anything else that went on that night. I winced as the image rushed back like a flood into my mind. I stood in front of the window, gazing at blue cloud as the sun broke through the darkness, planning a way to sneak out and go see my mate when I heard a knock on the door. Carla was deeply asleep on the couch, so I went to open the door myself. The green-haired beta, whose name I now knew as Curtis, smiled at me as soon as I opened the door. I should know him. He was my cousin, after all. "How are you feeling today, Emma?" he asked in his usual soothing voice. I remember him coming to my room to check on me during those times I was stuck in bed. He was indeed a sweet soul, as Carla said. Carla's crush, the Mint guy, came more usually to check my blood pressure and pulse. He brought some drugs that I didn't need but took due to Carla's incessant nagging, even though she always hid herself in the bathroom whenever he came. I smiled back at Curtis, watching his hair glitter in the sun rays. Still, he was part of the people who didn't allow me see my mate. "I'm fine, thank you," I replied curtly, waiting for him to say why he was here. "Alpha Zyke is asking for you, Emma," he said, the magic words that rid him of all his sins. A wide smile broke out of my face. "How is he?" I asked, almost jumping with joy. "You should go see for yourself, Cause." He grinned and stood out of the way, nodding encouragingly at me. I dashed to my mate's room, pushed the door open. He turned from the window he was standing close to as soon as I came in. He was healthier, but lost some weight due to his recovery process, but was looking so hot despite that. There was stubble on his cheeks that made him look so vulnerable. As with soft stare from his pretty violet eyes, the white polo shirt and joggers he was putting on made him look sexier than ever. "Emma." Relief washed over me as I ran into his open arms, breaking into muffled sobs. "Thank you for not dying, Zyke," I said in between sniffs. "Say my name again, little mate," he demanded, with a breathy voice that sent delicious shivers down my spine. "Zik," I said as he wrapped his arms tighter around me. "Zik," my voice was louder this time. He held me back, with a misty look in his eyes, dipped his head, kissing the tears from my cheeks, sending tremors all over my nerves. "You cry too much, mate," he whispered huskily before resting his salty lips on mine, drawing the soul out of my body with a single kiss. Alpha Zyke. This was the first time I was seeing my mate's hair packed in a bun. It was as though she was deliberately hiding all those beauty underneath the surface, all those times, and somehow she doesn't care even about her looks. She seemed gaunt, but didn't stop her blue eyes from dazzling brightly. I really don't deserve her. To think she was this happy seeing me alive despite all I've done to her made my heart tug with guilt. I wished to make her my Luna this instant, but that would expose her to more danger. What would have happened to her at that dark tower if I was a minute late was a torture I still haven't gotten rid of. She was worth fighting for, worth dying for, and worth being alive for. After the kiss, I held her at arm's length to inspect her some more. "Are you feeling okay?" I asked, remembering her swollen face that night. I must pay those people back, each and every one of them involved in hurting my mate. And that devious Alpha would be disgraced and stripped of his title and properties. She nodded, smiling. "Speak, Emma. I want to hear your voice." "Yes, I'm totally fine," she said, laughing and sniffling. Her voice was the sweetest sound I have ever heard. I could feel my member getting hard in my joggers as the sound resonated in my head. I gazed searchingly into her eyes. Her face was so small and straight, some tendrils of hair falling over her eyes. I would have been the most miserable male on earth if I had allowed her leave. "I wanted you now, mate," I breathed into her ears and watched her shiver in my arms. I could smell her arousal. She was wet for me already. I hauled her into my arms and placed her on my bed, thinking of all the nasty things I could do to her. "I want to smack your little ass." My voice was edgy and dominant now. I would be having her my own way. She responded by casting her eyes down and chewing on her already vulnerable lips. I would be kissing the hell out of them soon. I brought out 2 restraining cuffs and a rope. I peeled off her nightwear before cuffing her legs by the bedpost and then tying her hands together above her head. She was all mine now. We both panted, trying to catch our breath while he loosened my hands and the cuffs on my legs before lying beside me. He stretched out his hands so I rested my head on arms, drifting into a dreamless and calming sleep for the first time in a week. He kissed the top of my head before wrapping his arms around me and drifting to sleep. I don't think I would ever want to leave his side ever again after having something this precious with him. "Emma?" His grump voice dragged back my drifting mind. Are you going to sleep?" "Yes, I thought you were." "I think we might have a bit of a problem," he mumbled, and when I raised my head and looked at him questioningly, he added, "I want you again." I moved my hand down his body and found that he wasn't kidding. His member was hard as rock, with throbbing veins once again. Zyke claimed me with a slow, sensuous loving that was so different from the frantic passion of the first time that I was moved to tears. My hands were free enough this time around, so I used the opportunity to glide my hands across every part of his body, memorizing every angle, every scar, and every bone. I felt as though he was using his body to tell me how much he cared for me, and I could only respond the same way, welcoming this way of expression that needed to no words. There was no betrayal here, at least not tonight. I realized our relationship was not yet defined, and as a popular quote goes, where purpose is not defined, abuse is inevitable. I wondered how long I would be able to wait until he said those words, until he wasn't ashamed to show me to the world as his Luna, his queen. But I can't wait anymore. Leaving him would hurt as hell, but I must do that for myself, I thought as I fell asleep on his broad shoulders, third-person point of view. The Vampire King watched his minions escort Elgin Price into his office. He grinned as his bait approached. Yes, he was so close to getting his prized possession, he thought triumphantly. He made sure his bait was brought here as respectfully as possible. He was nothing to him, of course, but had a lot to play in helping him get the golden wolf. His queen-to-be. "Hello, Elgin. Welcome to our humble realm," he greeted warmly, gesturing his guest to his comfortable sofa, but Elgin Price refused to sit, but stood rigidly glaring him daggers. "What do you want with me, leech?" his guest lashed at him spitefully. "Why am I here? How dare you abduct me? Finding you, sir, was like looking for a needle in the ocean. Experience thought you well," Vladimir said graciously, twirling his glass of blood, sitting behind a white mahogany desk. "You haven't answered my question, Vamp." Elgin clenched and unclenched his fist, unable to contain his disgust for this blood-sucking leech suffering from delusion of grandiose. "Why the hell am I here?" "You're here because I want to help you rescue your daughter, Elgin. She is in the hands of that savage Alpha King, and I must confess, she is not in the best of conditions." Vladimir spoke manipulatively, ambling closer to Elgin. The werewolf laughed nervously, trying not to let his anxiety at the sound of his daughter show. "Why should I trust you, King? You leeches are the reason she doesn't have a mother," he bawled, wishing he could take his revenge here and now. "I want to help her, Elgin," Vladimir retorted meekly. "All that is in the past and was done by my father, not me. I know I can't bring back what you lost, but I want to fix things as much as I can." He bowed his head, showing remorse. He corked his head and said, "Let him in." And a young sorcerer who was banished from the wizard kingdom for sorcery malpractice few years back walked into his office. "Show us," Vladimir commanded, and the wizard twirled his hand in circling motion, opening a portal that looked like a mirror. Elgin Price stood, stupefied, seeing his daughter's swollen face as all her body was tied to a chair with the blue rope he was familiar with. His knees buckled, his whole body shook with horror. He couldn't even let out words from his lips. Tears rushed out, forming a big lump in his throat. "You may go," Vladimir said to the young sorcerer with multiple piercings around his body, and he closed the portal the same way he opened it and left the office. Vladimir knew how it all went down. He was aware that Emma fought for herself, but kept it from Elgin, whose eyes were already brimming with tears and lava. That information wouldn't do him any good, he thought mentally. "I'm going to get my child," Emma's father uttered, walking towards the door. "That is not a wise decision, Elgin," the Vamp King called him back. "They'll capture you as well and finish the both of you off. So you have to stay here and think of a solution together." "A solution?" Elgin asked, visibly distressed. "Yes, you'll have to summon her here." "Summon her how? I can't even reach her through mind link since I left the realm." He tightened his fist, trying not to break down. "We have other ways, Elgin," Vladimir said coolly. "Don't worry about it and make yourself at home." Alpha Zweig. I kissed my mate's head as she slept peacefully like a baby before leaving the room. I would never sleep until I have brought all those people who hurt her and killed Sorceress, gosh, the punishment they deserve. I instructed the guards, as well as my Gamma and Beta, to keep an eye on any suspicious person or activities within the castle's premises. Besides, it all happened inside the castle. I needed the last nail to hit on Argo's head since the men he hired refused to confess. A more outspoken compliance and witness was what we needed. Evil men like Argo shouldn't be cut off from the waste or they'll grow back up. They have to be uprooted from their roots and destroyed to make the world a better place. And now we have found someone. She was caught heading towards Green Forest Pack, and when she was threatened and questioned, She confessed that she has been giving information to the Alpha of Green Forest pack. I arrived at the investigation room at the back wing of the castle. Mendez, the head of the royal guards, was in charge of the investigation. I wasn't supposed to be here, but was told that I had to see who the person was. As soon as I walked into the enclosed cozy space with a desk in the middle and 2 chairs, I saw my personal stewardess, Roth, sitting opposite Mendez with her head bowed, chewing on her nails somberly. Mendez stood up immediately and bowed before filling me on the details of how the stewardess have been giving information about my mate and the castle affairs to the Alpha of Green Forest pack. I drew in a long breath. If she wasn't a female, I would have started her punishment here and now with a good punch. She'll be confessing before the whole council tomorrow. Make sure she is prepared, Mendez. He nodded and bowed, understanding what I meant without saying them. Carla. The ocean roared, sending waves that came with a heavy gust of wind. I shivered from the cold as I silently made my way through the foggy night to the pack's clinic, headed by Dr. Mint. Our pack was safer now that the stupid Heather and her greedy father have been apprehended, including those disloyal alphas. Now Emma could come out of the dark now and claim her right as the Luna Queen of the werewolf realm and the 12 packs. I wonder when that would be, though. Or was the Alpha still looking down on my friend after all they had gone through together? I hope not. It was finally my 18th birthday, and I wanted to grant Mint a wish he made without knowing the person he was making it to was listening. I had to meet him one last time and maybe kiss him even, before one of us finds our mate. The haze heat was drawing nearer on us, and as werewolves, most of us find our mates during such period, especially high-ranked wolves. It was a time when we are struck with the heat of maddening lust, so it was only natural for us to be paired or find out mates. Most wolves who couldn't find their mates after the ripe age of 18 usually find their mates during this period. It was the moon goddess's gift to us, increasing conception and birth rate. Too much sex, sex and more sex. I was not even anxious about whether I would ever be able to find my mate. I was more anxious about Mint finding his mate when I haven't been able to tell him how I felt about him. I wish I could reveal who I really was to him, but that might ruin this special night for me. I can't let myself get rejected by someone who isn't even my mate on my birthday night, which was why I was going to him as Isabella and not Carla. Isabel's blonde hair was in place, and so was the exact makeup I did at the night of the ball. The mask wasn't here, but I was sure he wouldn't recognize me as the rankless she-wolf, because, you see, our minds have a tricky way of interpreting things to us. The makeup doesn't really change my appearance totally, but no one would believe a rankless would be dressed in such expensive and shiny clothes. That was why Mint would never recognize me as anyone else but Isabel as long as I was dressed like this. I drew in a cold breath, rubbing my gloved hands together as I looked up at his office. The lights in his office were still on, and I could see him moving about, probably sorting some files. He was a hard-working humanitarian, which were part of the reasons I felt so drawn to him. But I was nothing. I didn't even have a good education or skill, because my kind was seen as the kinds who were expected to do the odd jobs others don't do, and for the rest of our lives. How dare I even dream of having feelings for someone as successful as Mint, who became a medical doctor even before the age of 25? His family owned the largest hospital in the werewolf realm and are the most respected after the royal house. I knew this much because I have been stalking him for more than a year, like I stalk BTS, the most successful idol group in the human realm. Get it together, Carla, I whispered to myself and inhaled before walking majestically into the hospital's reception area. The hall was filled with bright lights and totally void of people except the person in the reception area. The heels of my classy shoes echoed throughout the hall as I walked. A red-haired female receptionist sitting behind a tall counter asked what she could help me with. Her fluency and comportment made me nervous all over again. I was scared she might notice I was a rankless wolf. I told her I needed to see the Dr. Mint with a chipped tone I practiced days before coming. She asked if I made an appointment. I shook my head but quickly told her he was expecting me. I was surprising him on my own birthday. What a twist. She seized me up with the corner of her eyes before picking up a telephone that I didn't see before and placed it in her ears. I could hear it ringing, adding to the nervousness that was about to crush my kidneys. Mint finally picked, and before the receptionist was able to say a word, he told her that he couldn't see any more patients and he had to go home. He ended the call after that. I winced as the receptionist shrugged, placing the receiver back. I forgot how much of an asshole he was sometimes. "I'll wait for him to come down," I told her with a forced smile and went to take a seat among the rows of chairs stationed at the exit. After a few minutes sitting on the chair, a strong masculine cologne wafted into my nostrils, causing me to jerk up. I looked around, but there was no one except the receptionist, and she didn't look like she felt what I was feeling. The smell got closer and closer, and the next thing I saw was Mint walking towards me with a misty look in his gray eyes. Something strange stirred within me as he approached. My heart was pounding in my chest like it was trying to pop out. He looked breathtaking in his body-fitting silk long-sleeve shirt and navy blue meticulously ironed trousers. His dark hair with shades of gray sleeked into perfection with his broad shoulders, slender waist and straight frame caused my mouth to fall open. He was dripping utter sexiness. Dear Lord. I love him. I like him. But I have never ever felt this way around him. This wasn't the normal butterflies or beating chest I get in his presence. It was 1,000,000 times stronger. My heart was doing flip-flops, and my palms were sweating inside the gloves. It was cold, but beads of sweat were suddenly breaking out from my brows and temple. Mint is my mate? The realization hit me like a cannonball, and before I knew it, he enveloped me into a crushing hug, not minding that someone else was here. "I found you, finally, mate," he whispered hoarsely into my ears, sending a sensuous shiver down my spine. "This isn't right. No. How the am I going to make him accept me?" Third person point. The air was stale and the whole place reeked. Heather grumped for the 100th time. She couldn't believe the deepest part of the castle's dungeon was where her father's plans landed them, the smelliest place she had ever been to in her life. Her hair stink and was a total mess. She couldn't just imagine how horrendous her face would look because she haven't even had the opportunity to look into a mirror for the 2 days she and her father was thrown in here. She lived in a world where even her nails was cleaned by someone else. She had never had to struggle or breathe in bad air before. Worst of all, Heather couldn't understand why she was being punished alongside her father when all she did was for love, while her father did all his evil for his pure hatred for the Alpha King. She only realized during the trial that he planned to kill the king as well. She would have hated him for the rest of her life. Her father was selfish, and she had realized late that he was simply using her to get what he wanted. He didn't give an F about her dream of being the Luna Queen. He didn't even care about her genuine love for the king, but simply turned her into a pawn and a major tool to achieve his aim of getting the throne. She heaved a frustrated sigh, tired of holding in her breath. If frustration doesn't kill her eventually, the morbid stink in this dungeon would. She peered at the opposite cell where her father was placed in. He was quiet as usual, sitting behind the shadows with his back against the wall, probably scheming more evil. He had refused to eat all the meals brought to him, probably hoping to starve to death since the king turned down his plea to execute him once and for all. She hated to admit it, but her father deserved the execution. After all, he was responsible for the death of the sorceress, the attempted murder on the Alpha King, and even his mate. He even turned all the other Alphas against the king. What a big scumbag he was. The Alpha was being the kind king he had always been, decided to spare their lives. Heather only wonders what would be of the Green Forest Pack now, and for all she knows, she is no longer the child of an Alpha or a potential Luna Queen now. What would become of them now? How long will they live in this tiny, stinky cage? Now that the haze was drawing nearer, it was safe to say that their torture was only just beginning. Alpha Zyke. Everything was finally going smoothly, I thought, walking towards my mate's room. The traitors have been apprehended. I have gotten revenge for the killers of the sorceress and all the people who hurt my mate. Thankfully, she was feeling better now. Mint told me about the traumatic episodes she went through that night, and how she kept calling on her mother every night and day in her sleep, like the night they found me almost dying in her arms. I have always thought her to be fragile and weak until I heard all of the story. Not from her, of course, but from Mint, who conducted a hypnosis session for her when it seemed like the nightmares and traumas were beginning to consume her. All these while I was blaming her for not being strong when I didn't know how broken she had been from childhood. I was expecting so much from a child who watched her mother being murdered in cold blood. That was what made her mute. The muteness that made me treat her like a disease was her coping mechanism. She spoke for the first time after seeing me in the same condition her mother was. And despite seeing such sight, she was able to crush more than 10 men at a time, even without coming close to them. That was what strength really was. One doesn't have to be strong by looking like it. Strong people are the ones who use their strengths when it mattered most, by protecting the things and people they loved. And she taught me all that even without saying a word, without coming off as tough or capable of anything. She might still be broken inside, but she was doing a fine job of getting the pieces of herself together. I sighed as I stood in front of her door, wondering how she would have felt all these while when the only person who should have loved her most in the world treated her like an unwanted trash. It was all over now. I would make her my queen before the haze finally hits, and it will come as a surprise to her. I don't care about her being a golden wolf or the goddess's chosen one. She is my mate, and I would protect her with my last drop of blood. First, I had to give her the good news from Trish. I pushed the door open and found her sitting on her bed, her legs crossed over, her head buried in a book, her hair packed in a bun. She was putting on a simple black top and jean shorts. She didn't care much about how she looks, unlike the vain drama queen I almost took as my Luna. Emma didn't even notice I was inside already. I was sure she had traveled deep into the book already. That was why I was more than certain she would be more than happy for the news I would be giving her. "Hey," I greeted, sitting close to her on the bed. "How are you feeling today?" I asked, drawing her close to me. She raised her head only for me to see tears in her eyes. I was taken aback. "Is something wrong? Are you hurt?" "Oh, no," she laughed, wiping her eyes with her hands, but I stopped her and wiped her face with the wipe from my pocket. "The main character of this book died, and it hurts so much." "It's just a book," I chuckled, unable to believe she was crying simply because of fiction. "Well, it isn't just a book to me." She dropped the book and sat on my lap, wrapping her arms around my waist. "It's a whole world on its own, and I've invested all my time and emotions on the characters. I feel like I'm living with them and I know them personally. Only bookworms know the feeling of losing a character we love." I grunted mentally. I couldn't really concentrate on what she was saying with her hands around my groin. I sat up thoughtfully. "What do you think about being the assistant librarian of the Royal Library?" I asked tentatively, holding my breath for her answer. "What?" she shrieked, getting up and grabbing my arms excitedly. "You really mean it? Like I can go out of this room and work in a library, for that matter?" Yes, you can," I giggled. She was like a little child right now, jumping around with so much glee. "I asked my sister, Tricia, who is the head librarian of the Royal Library, and she said she would be more than honored to have you work with her. And of course you'll be paid because it's a hectic job," I explained between chuckles. "Are you kidding? I don't care about being paid. Imagine being surrounded by books and nothing but books." She spread her arms, twirling around before me, giggling like crazy. My heart tugged in my chest as I watched her, a warmth feeling spreading through my insides. I don't think I have ever seen her this excited about anything else. I had finally found a way to make her happy after all, and it felt so bloody nice. I was falling balls deep in love with her, and I couldn't deny that anymore. I wonder how she would feel when I finally make her my Luna Queen. Would she agree to mark me now? "Emma," I cuddled beside my mate, watching him sleep. His tan skin glowed in dark, as well as his perfectly sculptured face. Was it okay to have someone this handsome all to myself? He was really changing, and I could see how much he was trying to make me stay. Not that he knew I wanted to leave anyway. Should I just stay? Ashley, should I stay? I asked my wolf, but she simply grunted, enjoying the close proximity she was sharing with her mate. I could go get my father now and stay back here now that I had a job I so much love. But the question was, what would I stay here as? His mistress? His bedmate? I have never been the ambitious kind before, but I know what I deserve. I don't care about being the Luna Queen or anything, but I have to be something other than his mate or his sex partner. Something that could help me stay by his side without fear. A nauseous feeling gnawed at me. It felt so strong that I was forced to rush to the toilet to throw up. Zeke was behind me in seconds, muttering soothing words and asking me how I was feeling. He asked if I needed any drugs, and he could call Mint right away. I knew Carla would be with Mint right now, so I objected vehemently, telling him that water would do and I would be fine after a good night rest. He brought me water to wash my mouth and clean myself up before taking me back to bed. I was feeling weak all of a sudden and was about to doze off when I heard Ashley gasp in my head. "Oh my God, Emma, you're with a pup," she shrieked, causing my eyes to jerk open. "What do you mean I'm with a pup, Ashley?" "You're carrying a child inside of you. You're pregnant." With the look on her face, I didn't know if she was excited or shocked. I wasn't excited. I couldn't be. I'm not even ready. "What do I do, Ashley?" I was beginning to tremble with anxiety. "What do you mean? Pups are miracles." Oh yeah, she was indeed excited. "I'm sure they would be miracles if they come when I want them." I groaned in my head, shifting uncomfortably as my mate wrapped his hands tighter around me. He was sleeping so peacefully while I was in so much turmoil here. "Miracles don't have to be wanted, Em. They just happen even when you aren't expecting them. That's why they are called miracles," she cheerfully explained like an old granny. I humped mentally, rolling my eyes. "Sleep for now and tell him by morning," she advised, yawning as though she was about to go back to sleep. Tell him? How do I tell him about a sudden pregnancy when we were simply starting to try to make our relationship work? Ashley was really a wolf, so I shouldn't really judge her for thinking like one. I slept off thinking of the best way to tell my mate by morning. I woke up the next morning to see Zuck dressed in blue suits that magnified his broad shoulders. He was really a sight for sore eyes. But how long have I slept for him to have gotten all dressed up? Seemed like he was heading somewhere important. "Tell him about the child," Ashley urged out of nowhere. "I just can't tell him now, Ash. When he comes back, okay?" "That's just an excuse you're giving yourself, Em. Tell him and stop acting like a coward." She was beginning to annoy me with her incessant bickering this morning. Where was she all these while when I needed her, when I was losing my mind with nightmares and all? "I felt every single thing you were feeling, Emma. Now, tell him," she said calmly, replying my thoughts. I sat up on the bed, clearing my throat to get Zyke's attention. "Hey, babe. Good morning. How are you feeling now?" he asked, and I couldn't help but blush like a high school girl. "Babe?" This was the first time I have ever heard him call me that. I have always felt small and almost insignificant by his side, but the sound of him calling me babe melted my heart. "Coffee?" he asked, and I nodded, so he went to get a hot mug of brown coffee for me. I downed all the content at once, hoping it could calm the nausea that was creeping up again. "You're heading somewhere?" I asked tentatively, still wondering if telling him now was a good idea. My hands were wrapped around the empty mug nervously. "Oh, yeah," he answered, sitting on the bed to put on his socks. "I'll be going to address the members of the Green Forest Pack on the future of their pack and the new leadership. Can't really say much for now." "Oh," I muttered, biting my lips, but he drew me flush against his body and kissed me with an unhurried passion. Doesn't seem like he was in a hurry then. Maybe I should tell him now. I parted the kiss and looked into his eyes for a while. "What do you think about kids?" I asked, holding his gaze. He stiffened for a second before he continued with his socks. "Kids are okay, I guess," he shrugged indifferently. "What do you think about having them?" I inquired, taking another step further. "Maybe in the future, but I think it's a bit too early to be thinking about kids, little mate, don't you?" He took my hands into his, chuckling lightly. "I still have a lot I want to do with you, and kids would be a huge distraction. Why are you asking anyway?" I was chewing on my lips right now, trying to give myself reasons not to tell him, But nothing sufficed. He was the father of the child who came after a consented sex, so I don't see any reason I shouldn't tell him. The responsibility belonged to the both of us. Emma? He caressed my hands gently with a raised eyebrow. I'm pregnant. I breathed, staring down at the white quilts on the bed. What? I raised my head to see him laughing. How can you be pregnant, Emma? It's a joke, right? His tone elevated my nervousness by tenfolds. I'm afraid not, Zyke, I affirmed quietly, looking up at him. He dropped my hands slowly, standing up and walking away from me. His eyes had changed from the soft and loving way it was to a pit of hot, brimming lava. How could you? He yelled, sounding hurt and betrayed. I wanted to give the whole world to you. I want to have you all to myself and never share you with anyone else. Damn it! My heart ripped apart at his words. They were like hammers, shattering my soul into tiny pieces. You're not sharing me with anyone. This child is ours, Zyke. It is our responsibility. My voice faltered, sounding cracked as my whole body was beginning to tremble. I was expecting him to be surprised and all, but I didn't expect an attitude like this from him. I don't want it, at least not now, he uttered icily, stalking out of the room, slamming the door noisily after him. A muffled sob escaped my throat as I clutched my chest in a miserable attempt to stop my breaking her from breaking further. My heart burned, my stomach churned as I recalled the words again, sending me to the toilet for another round of throwing up. I turned on the tap and let my tears flow like it. I thought we were all good. I felt we could be better. Maybe I was not enough after all. Maybe I was being delusional.